Hi, this is Teri Bach, and I'm your host of the Rewrite Your Money Story series. I have noticed in talking with people about money how often it comes up about couples fighting about it. And couples often have different money styles, and it's often hard for them to negotiate those differences. And sometimes, although the topic is money, the issue isn't really about money at all. So I've brought together some financial and relationship experts to give us their perspectives on the topic of couples fighting about money and how to help them. So today I've invited Jen Lee as our expert. Jen is a debt and credit attorney and owner of Jen Lee Law Incorporated. She's a leading expert on debt, credit, and financial stress, having been featured in Consumer Affairs, U.S. News and World Report, and other national publications. Jen's a creator of several innovative programs to deal with financial stress and rebuilding after financial disaster. So she's the founder of Build My Fresh Start, which helps people rebuild credit and finances. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Teri. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I noticed your elephant in the room. Would you like to introduce her?
I can introduce her. Let me grab her.
Okay.
So she can be up close and personal on my
Absolutely.
screen. So this is the elephant in the room. Her name is Bernadette.
I love that.
So, Bernadette. If I say it too fast, people don't quite get it.
Right.
And the elephant in the room is that 70% of Americans have a debt or credit problem of some sort, which is a huge number.
Yes.
And no one wants to talk about it. So
Exactly.
I use Bernadette to make a hard topic a little bit more approachable, I guess.
Yeah, or maybe even fun if you can stretch it that far.
Yeah, she can be a little fun.
Well, that's cute. She's cute too. Yes. So what are some of the biggest problems you see with couples and financial stress?
So I'm a debt and credit attorney. So by the time someone gets to me, it's pretty stressful. It's a lot of issues going on.
Right.
But what I see is a lot of people not understanding their own personal financial issues in the relationship. So one spouse will know about the finances and the other one has no idea. They'll be sitting there in front of me and the one spouse won't know that there's $50,000 in credit card debt or something like that. They had no idea. And the other spouse is like, well, how did you think we were affording all of these things? And I'm like, well, we didn't know. We didn't have any idea. So I see a lot of people not communicating and not talking, scared, very scared.
And sometimes not being honest with each other. I run into that sometimes with my clientele.
Yeah. And
they're embarrassed to talk about it with their spouse. They don't want their spouse to know they're overspending. So.
Right. And a lot of times with couples, when you go into a relationship, it's one is a spender and one's a saver. We seem to have the opposites attract mentality.
Absolutely.
And so it's hard to admit to your spouse sometimes that either you don't want to spend money on something or I spent too much money on something. So.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that children often get kind of in the middle with anything. And I imagine in a financially stressful situation, it's the same. So how do you think all that stress affects the kids in the relationship?
So most of the people I talk to think their kids have no idea that they're financially stressed, and that actually couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly.
Most children know what's going on. They may not know the adult words for it. They may not know how to articulate the problem, but they know there's something going on. And it's actually more stressful for them because they don't know how to outline that what's going on. And statistics show, or studies show, that children, by the time they're 7 years old, their money mindset is set. How they treat money, how they look at money.
Yes.
And so I always get after some of my couples who come in because your kids are really absorbing everything around them right now, and including that financial stress, and it really affects them.
Yes, I totally agree. In the work that I do, I actually take people into a visualization to back when they were that age, 7, and how their parents were talking about money, and they can recall a lot from their subconscious
Yes.
of what was going on. And it's really enlightening for them to see that, how much they did take on. So, yeah, I'm glad you're educating parents.
Well, and these repeating patterns take place too, where I'll sometimes have 3 generations in my office. I'll have the grandparents, their child, and then the grandchildren, because those money habits have been passed down or learned, not necessarily passed down, like they were never really taught, but they just learned from family.
Sure.
And they have the same issues where one's trying to bail out the next generation, or it kind of all rolls downhill.
It does.
So I see generational issues. Yeah.
Right. So we're lucky because we're helping people stop that generational pass down.
Exactly.
Funny, yes. Okay. So what do you think couples need to do to improve getting through that financial stress?
I think a lot of it starts even before you get married or get into a relationship, to talk about these things. And there's a joke, about running a credit report on your, next boyfriend or girlfriend. And I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but I would say talk about how you view money, what's important to you, what you value. If you value experiences over things, that can be a real financial disparity.
Exactly. It could be.
So, find out what each side values and how finances are going to be managed. The saddest things I see right now are couples where one spouse passes away and the other spouse had no idea where their accounts were at, if there were retirement plans, if anything was in place. And so talk about those things ahead of time.
Yes.
Before getting married is important. And I recommend that you find out what your rights are if you get married, how your spouse's credit and debt can affect you. Because everyone thinks, we're going to keep this separate. That's her debt or that's his debt. And that's not how it always works.
No, it isn't.
So talking about those things and finding an expert to talk you through, what that looks like in the future is very helpful.
Okay. So what are some of the tools or resources that you have for I guess to help people find out what their rights are and what their different options are?
So from a premarital standpoint, my firm does offer premarital strategy sessions on debt and credit issues.
Okay.
And it's not so much focused. Everyone thinks of a premarital agreement as a family law where you're setting up, these are my assets, these are my assets. And I approach it differently as, what's your debt and credit look like once you get married? And what happens if you get divorced? And what if you've taken on student loan debt for your future spouse? And all these different things, talking through some of those things. So coming at more of a financial perspective than a protect our assets perspective.
Right.
I also do what I call debt therapy, where more of it's just talking through what they've realized that there's some kind of problem. They don't have a financial coach yet. They don't have anything where they just want to talk through and figure out, do we need a lawyer for this? Do we need a financial coach? What do we need for this? Right. And so that's what I call debt therapy, where we're kind of walking through, are we down the path where we have to have an attorney, or are we just need someone to help us with communication? And so then I can send them to the right resources there. Okay.
Are there, I guess, I like that you're working with people before they get married. And I mean, because it's harder after they're married to figure some of this stuff out sometimes.
Can be, yeah.
And can be, yes. And so I love that you're doing that, and you're kind of enforcing, I guess, people talking about money, which often, as we said, people don't talk about.
Taboo topic. People think that they can't talk about it because their families didn't talk about it, or society tells us not to talk about it. So,
yeah, it was actually a kind of an unspoken rule in our family. Religion or money.
Right. You don't talk about your salary or there's all kinds of things we don't talk about.
Yeah, but we do.
Controversial.
Money, sex, or not money, politics, religion, sex. Yeah. We talk about all that stuff, but we still don't really talk about money.
Yeah, it can be, and it can be overwhelming too, especially you have to have someone who's willing to talk about it. That's the other part, is sometimes I get couples where one's like, I'm not willing to talk about this. And so then you have to decide, do I really want to be somewhere where I can't talk about money?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a good clue. It's like you're doing like pre-marriage
Kind
counseling.
of, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. People
Yeah.
joke all the time. They feel like they're in a therapist's office in my office
Mhm.
sometimes. And I said, well, it kind of is. I'm coming at it from a legal standpoint, but it kind of is
Right.
therapy. So,
Okay. That's great.
mhm.
So, Jen, I understand you have a gift for our audience. Would you like to tell us what that
I
is?
do. So when you, in your introduction, you had talked about Build My Fresh Start. So I like coming up with programs. There's all kinds of different budgets out there, all kinds of different levels of people looking for help. And
Mhm.
some people don't want a one-to-one interaction. They just want someone to give them a video course, or they want someone to
Right.
give them a workbook, and everyone learns differently. So my free gift today was I have a module that starts Build My Fresh Start. And it
Okay.
talks about facts and fiction around debt, finances, and recovering from a financial disaster. And
Nice.
what I find in my business is that so many people have wrong information. And so I did, and it's only like a 10-minute module where you get to go through and hear all these different facts and
Okay.
misconceptions out there. And
Sure.
there's also a checklist that goes with it on what you can do next to start rebuilding, or even start, it's not even so much a rebuilding as a financial education tool.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for the
Well,
audience, all you need to do is click on the button right below this video, and it'll take you right to Jen's free gift. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Jen?
no, I just encourage people to be informed, be educated on what you can do. The most common thing I hear in my office is, I didn't know. I didn't know I could do anything about this. I didn't know I could fix this. Or I didn't know that it actually was easier than I thought it was going to be. And so I tell people all the time, just be informed of what you can do so that you can make that decision.
Mhm. Because we tend to want to avoid dealing with things
The elephant.
with the, yeah. Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
So tell
everyone
me
wants to
how
avoid it.
exactly. I meant to ask you this at the beginning, but what
Sure.
got you into doing this kind of work?
So it was really interesting. I started out, law is a second career for me. I was in 10 years in insurance and financial planning. So I'm a numbers person. I tend to think of
Sure.
numbers. And when I came out of law school, I started doing a lot of bankruptcy work because that was the recession we were in. And I found out I really liked the debt and credit side of things, helping people figure out what their options were. But
Mhm.
a lot of people didn't necessarily need a bankruptcy attorney. They just needed someone to help them walk through what their rights and options were and make that decision. And
Okay.
so I still do a lot of bankruptcy work, but I really enjoy helping people. And a lot of times they only need to have like one session and we have it all figured out what their
Sure.
plan is, and they go execute it, and they're educated. So I found that I really liked educating and talking to people and going through and making this not quite so scary. So that's
Right.
my passion, is really figuring out that there are ways forward and there's hope out there, and you don't have to be imprisoned by debt and credit problems.
And that's such important work,
Yeah.
because you're making it not scary.
Mm-hmm.
A topic that feels really scary to a lot of people.
It is. It can be and physically, it affects your health. It
Mhm.
affects all kinds of things. So
Right.
I find that as soon as someone starts understanding that they have rights, you can see them relax. Like you see them start straightening up and start looking, okay, I got this. But
Yes.
before that,
It's
they had headaches,
right.
stomach aches. Yeah,
Yeah. And once they know what
so
their rights are, I mean, it empowers them and
exactly.
they know how to move forward instead of just being scared and being
All the time.
stuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had one lady one time who said, I just wanted to share this.
Uh-huh.
She hadn't slept for days. She was so stressed about this. We got her all resolved. We got everything, outlined. And she called me the next day. She's like, I slept for 10 hours last night. I was
Oh
so
my
excited to sleep. So
gosh.
it's little things
It
like sleep.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which, yeah, stresses us out even more if we don't have it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for being here, Jen. I appreciate
Thanks for having me.
your expertise.
Thanks for doing this and
Oh,
educating people as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm loving it. And a big thank you to the audience, too, to the listeners for being on the Rewrite Your Money Story series. And tune in tomorrow for another expert who's going to be sharing their story and their way of helping couples work through this maze of money issues so that they can really have more peace in working together around it. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here.